Pizza is great to use when we're talking about fractions. Intuitively, we know that if we slice a pizza in half, that those two halves equal a whole. And since we know that this is true, we can use this information to help us figure out how to multiply fractions. One thing we can do confidently is to write 2 times a half equals a whole as a multiplication problem. We know this is true because we can see it visually. Next, let's turn 2 into a fraction by putting it over 1. Do you see that if we multiply the numerators and denominators straight across that we're going to get an answer that we're looking for? We get 2 over 2, and that equals 1, so it looks like we're on the right track. If we don't get 1, then we know we've done something wrong. Now let's see if this is true when we divide a pizza into 4 parts. Again, we can write 4 times 1/4 equals 1 as a multiplication problem because visually we know that this is true. Written in words, 4/4 is equal to 1 whole, or we can also say 4/4 is equal to 1. Next, we write this as a multiplication problem. 4 times 1/4 is equal to 1. And then we write 4 as a fraction, and again, we multiply the numerators and then we multiply the denominators, and we get 4 over 4, which is equal to 1. And getting a 1 shows us that we're still on the right track. So let's try one more and divide a pizza into 8 pieces, and then we're going to be able to write 8 times 1/8 equals 1 because we can see visually that this is true. In words, 8/8 is equal to 1 whole. Next, we can confidently write this as a multiplication problem. 8 times 1/8 is equal to 1. And putting 8 over 1, making it into a fraction, then we can multiply the numbers straight across, and again we get an answer of 1, which is exactly what we expected. Now that we've established a pattern for multiplying fractions, we can use this to multiply more complicated fractions. Math is about following the rules. Once you know them, then it's easier to figure things out, like these fractions. This is all about multiplication. There are rules to follow, and once you know the rules, you can use them to your advantage to speed things up. So far, we've used a couple of things that are super helpful. Number 1, we know that we can turn any number into a fraction by placing it over 1, and it doesn't change the value of the number. And the second thing we know is that any number over the same number is equal to 1. These ideas are going to be really helpful throughout all of math. Now let's try some other problems. Let's multiply 1/2 times 1/4. Again, let's multiply straight across as we did before, and we get 1/8. And now let's try multiplying 1/4 times 1/8. Again, we're going to multiply the numerators and then we're going to multiply the denominators, and in this case we'll get 1 over 32. And one more, let's try multiplying 1/6 times 1/2. The numerators, it equals 1, and 6 times 2 is equal to 12. Now let's multiply 3 fractions together. Let's do 1/2 times 1/4 times 1/3. We do exactly the same thing as before, we just have 3 fractions instead of 2. So here we get 1 over 24. Now here's one that has a different number other than 1 in the numerator, but it doesn't change anything as far as how we multiply these together. So in the numerator, we multiply across and get 3. And the denominator, we multiply across and we get 40. So it doesn't matter how many fractions you're multiplying together, the process is the same. Now remember, these rules are for multiplying fractions. Now when you add fractions, those rules are different. It's not difficult, you just have to make sure that you look at the details to know what you need to do, and you can always go back to pizza to figure it out. Now you may realize by now that knowing your multiplication facts is super helpful when working with fractions. Knowing them also makes working these problems super fast, even faster than it takes to punch the numbers into a calculator. If you don't yet have these memorized, I have a super quick way to learn them in just minutes a day, and it's only going to take you a couple of weeks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.